What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. And if you have not been to this channel before, previously I was covering only the Big Ten Conference. It just made things a lot less stressful for me and so that I could bring more accurate information to you guys. However, I am done covering only the Big Ten Conference. We're going to move into the bigger picture. So if you're new to this channel, hey, thanks for coming along. Thank you for clicking on this video. Please do leave a like and also consider subscribing. Again, if you are new to the channel or you just enjoy this video, ring that bell for me too. You guys are going to become a part of Tailgate Nation if you do that. Also, you can leave a comment down below and tell me your thoughts on this video and share the video with everyone you know as well. I'm trying to grow the channel as big as possible, so if you share it with people, that would help me out a lot. In this video, I'm going to be going through how a list of contenders can get into the field of 4 or into the college football playoff. The teams that I have listed in this video, I feel like personally have a legitimate shot of getting into the college football playoff, some more than others, and we'll look at the list of contenders here in a little bit. But what I'm going to be going through is not a list of scenarios on what happens if this team, and this team win and what the field of 4 is. That would get way too convoluted way too quickly, and I would more than likely forget a scenario that people in the comment section would be like, what happens if this scenario happens? And I'm not going to do that. So in this video, again, I'm just going to tell you a guaranteed scenario or pretty close to how contenders can get into the college football playoff. But before we do that, we have to look at my list of possible contenders. There are 9 of them, and they are just in the order that the College Football Playoff Committee ranked them yesterday on Tuesday. You can look at the list of contenders there. Some notable eliminations are Georgia, who is in the committee's top 10, but will not be getting into the college football playoff because they have 2 losses, both to Florida and Alabama, who are playing the SEC championship game while Georgia is not. Other notable eliminations, of course, Coastal Carolina has no shot. In my opinion, Northwestern has no shot, and neither does Indiana as well. But you might be thinking, well, what about USC? I don't think USC has a shot. They talked about it yesterday on the show when they compared USC and Ohio State. USC has not played very good teams and have struggled against pretty bad teams, while Ohio State has looked pretty close to dominant in all of the games that they have played this season, whether it be throughout the game or just at some point throughout the game. While USC has struggled, that is why USC has no chance, in my opinion, and in a lot of other people's opinion as well. Let's go ahead and get some scenarios rolling. But first, we do have to talk about a couple teams that I feel like have already earned their spot in the college football playoff. These teams have proved, without a doubt, they are 2 of the best teams in college football this year and deserve to be in the field of 4. We'll start with the easy one, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama has just looked dominant game in and game out. There is no reason why Alabama should not be in the field. Beating Texas A&M by a lot, beating Georgia by a lot. Alabama has been dominant in every single game that they've played. I don't care if they lose to Florida by 40 points. Alabama is getting into the college football playoff. The other team that I feel like deserves a spot and probably already has one locked up, especially with Florida losing to LSU, is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I do feel like that even if Notre Dame were to lose to Clemson, they've already beat Clemson. Now, granted, the committee might say, well, that was without Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence is not the reason why Clemson lost that game. Neither was the defense. It was turnovers and Notre Dame playing their absolute butts off in that game. My opinion, Notre Dame deserves a spot as well. They've been right up there with Bama at 1 and 2. Notre Dame already in the college football playoffs. So that leaves 2 spots left. Let's see what the 7 other teams need to do in order to get in. For a couple teams, it's as easy as win and you're in. The first team is the Clemson Tigers. Of course, if they beat Notre Dame, which is their only loss, if they can avenge their only loss, Clemson is assured a spot in the college football playoff. No questions asked. This team has looked really good. They've had to battle through Trevor Lawrence being out, had to battle through defensive injuries, but they have come out on top of every single game they've played except for that Notre Dame game, again, which they didn't have Trevor Lawrence and some big players on defense. Also, Notre Dame played a great game. So you can be assured that if Clemson can avenge their only loss, they're getting in college football playoff. But the other team that I have the feeling is going to get in if they win is the Ohio State Buckeyes. The committee has put them above Texas A&M at number 4 for a reason. This team When they play their best football, it looks like one of the most dominant and best 4 teams in the country. Now, Ohio State may have only been playing 5 games, and a couple people watching this video may have an opinion on Ohio State shouldn't be in the college football playoff because they don't deserve it. That's fine, but this video is not questioning whether teams deserve it. It's questioning what is legitimately going to happen. Ohio State going to make the college football playoff if they beat Northwestern. I'll talk about the conference championship games more tomorrow. But again, if Ohio State wins, they're in. No questions asked, in my opinion. Now let's go ahead and look at some teams that are going to need a little bit of help to get into the college football playoff. We're going to start with the first team on the outside looking in. That's the Texas A&M Aggies. In terms of where they are ranked, they're ahead of the Big 12, Cincinnati, Florida, pretty much everybody. They are sitting there at number 5 and have been for every single ranking, and that head-to-head against Florida looks really, really good now. They do have a matchup against Tennessee coming up, which I will talk about on Thursday. Yes, it's not a championship game, but it still matters to the playoff aspect. So Texas A&M just on the outside looking in, but they're going to need a little bit of help. What's going to need to happen for Texas A&M to get in is pretty simple. Either Clemson or Ohio State needs to lose. If Clemson loses, they get that second loss. That pushes them out, and why would you give them a third shot against Notre Dame? It just doesn't seem fair. And, of course, with the amount of games that Ohio State has played, if they lose to Northwestern, if Northwestern can somehow upset the Buckeyes, Texas A&M will get in. Now, you see there I put and or. Because it might depend on how Clemson or Ohio State loses the game. But in my opinion, if just one of those two things happens, Texas A&M is going to get in the college football playoff. This team has looked really good apart from that game against Alabama. Again, I've already talked about the head-to-head against Florida. That helps them out a ton, especially now with Florida having 2 losses. First things first, they got to take care of business against Tennessee. But they're going to become Notre Dame and Northwestern fans on Saturday. Next up, we're going to look at the Florida Gators, and you might be thinking, I thought this team's out. Somehow, some way, the Florida Gators are still in college football playoff conversation. Let's look at where they are in the ranking. They are ahead of Oklahoma and Cincinnati. Again, they're staying ahead of the group of 5 team. They only dropped 1 spot to number 7 after the loss to LSU, which I don't get, but again, it just makes sense to the committee. Meanwhile, they are behind Texas A&M and Iowa State. Of course, they're behind Texas A&M. They have the head-to-head loss, and the committee just really likes Iowa State for some reason, compiled with Florida's loss. That's who they got to get behind. What needs to happen for Florida? Kind of a lot. First of all, the most important thing, they need to go ahead and beat Alabama. Now, it's not on this list because it's trivial to put on the list because, of course, they need to win to get into the college football playoff. But Florida, again, has to win to get into the college football playoff. And that's going to be a tough task in and of itself. But if they can somehow get past Bama, here's what else they're going to need. They're going to need a Texas A&M loss, and they're going to need Notre Dame, in my opinion, to win big. Apart from Florida beating Alabama big, they're going to need Notre Dame to win big as well. In my opinion, if it comes down to a 2-loss Florida and a 2-loss Clemson, in my opinion, Clemson gets in the playoff. Now, I don't think that's what the committee is going to do, but I think in order to guarantee Florida a spot, Notre Dame is going to have to win big and blow out and embarrass the Clemson Tigers. Now, I put number 3 and 4 in asterisks because they may need to happen, but they also may not need to happen. You see where I'm going with this? It probably doesn't need to happen, but just for good measure, I went ahead and put it on this list. Oklahoma needs to win the Big 12. Because Florida is behind Iowa State, they need Oklahoma to win the Big 12, which is the more likely of the two. But that would help Florida. But also, I don't really think it would matter too much because, in my opinion, if Iowa State were to beat Oklahoma, that's not a better win than Florida beating the number 1 team in the country. And then I put there at number 4, if Ohio State loses, I don't necessarily think it matters to the Florida Gators, although losing to LSU did help Ohio State. So if Ohio State could lose, that would hurt Ohio State and help Florida. But again, I just think that really doesn't need to happen. Somehow, some way, Florida's still in playoff conversation. There you go. That's what needs to happen for the Gators to get in the field of 4. Now, I know everyone has already written off the Big 12, but the committee seems to like Iowa State so much. They are still in this thing. They are ahead of Cincinnati and Florida and, of course, Oklahoma, but they have to play Oklahoma, and they're only behind Texas A&M. You might think a lot needs to happen for Iowa State to get in. Really, not a whole lot needs to happen, but they're going to have to be rooting for a major upset. First of all, just like Florida, they need Texas A&M to lose. Apart from beating Oklahoma, which is going to be a tough task even in of itself, because beating a team twice in the same season is not easy at all. They need Texas A&M to lose. A lot of teams are counting on the Texas A&M loss to upset against Tennessee. That's a tough task in it of itself. They also need Alabama to beat Florida, because like we just talked about with Florida, if it comes down to a 2-loss conference champion in Florida who beat Alabama and a 2-loss conference champion in Iowa State, beating Alabama is a better win than beating Oklahoma, and I don't care how much the committee likes Iowa State, Florida gets in over Iowa State. So they do need, so Iowa State does need Alabama to beat Florida. And then they would also need Clemson or Ohio State to lose. Now, again, I guess it would be nice if both things happen, but to me, really only one of the two things would need to happen for Iowa State to get in. Again, comparing a 2-loss Clemson, a 2-loss Iowa State, I think a 2-loss Clemson gets in. And of course, if Clemson were to go ahead and win, they would need Ohio State to lose, because Ohio State would go ahead and get ahead of them. But there you go. That's what Iowa State needs. It's not too far-fetched, but they're going to be big Tennessee fans if they can get past Oklahoma. And of course, Clemson or Ohio State would have to take a loss. So quite a bit needs to happen for Iowa State to get into the playoff, but it is not far out of reach. Oklahoma has a similar situation with Iowa State, although they are all the way down at number 10. So in my opinion, it's less likely Oklahoma gets in, but this is 2020. Anything can happen. They're ahead of nobody in the rankings. They are the last team in the top 10, which means they're behind everybody. So apart from beating Iowa State, which they are the favorite in that game, everyone's predicting Oklahoma to beat Iowa State. You'll find out my predictions on Thursday, which is tomorrow, at least as of uploading this video. But when you take a look here at Oklahoma, what needs to happen is very similar to what Iowa State needs. First of all, they have to beat Iowa State, which they're already the favorite in that game. But again, Iowa State is really good. Again, very similar to Iowa State. Texas A&M would have to lose, Alabama would have to win, and Clemson or Ohio State would have to lose for the same reasons that I just talked about with Iowa State. Now, I put this in asterisks because, again, it's a thing that might not need to happen, but I put it here on the list for good measure. A Cincinnati loss. Because Oklahoma is behind Cincinnati in the rankings, it would maybe boost their chances a little bit if Cincinnati lost, but I also don't think it would be the biggest deal in the world if Cincinnati were to go ahead and win the game and everything else in front of it happens. I just don't know that it's going to be that big of a deal, but very similar to Iowa State. You need a Texas A&M loss, Alabama win, and a Clemson or Ohio State loss. If those things can happen, the winner of the Big 12 championship can still get in the college football playoff. But now we move to the last team on the list, and I got to tell you, I see no way that Cincinnati is guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff. You look at who they're ahead of, only Oklahoma, and in my opinion, it's by a very, very slim margin. The committee has just kept dropping Cincinnati after they have continued to cancel games. In my opinion, I really don't see how Cincinnati gets in over a 2-loss Oklahoma. And they're behind everybody else. So what is going to need to happen for Cincinnati to get a spot? Quite a lot. First of all, they have to take care of Tulsa. It's going to be hard for Cincinnati because they don't have a good win on their resume. But again, Cincinnati is going to need to beat Tulsa. Now what else is going to need to happen? They're going to need a Texas A&M loss, as every other team besides Texas A&M has needed. They're going to need Alabama and Notre Dame to win. And in my opinion, they're going to need Alabama and Notre Dame to win big. Alabama beating Florida, that gives Florida their third loss. They are most definitely out. But then Notre Dame beating Clemson, I still think Clemson gets in over Cincinnati, showing what the committee has shown with Cincinnati as they just kept dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. I think Notre Dame has to win big. I know it's not on, but I think Notre Dame has to win big. They also need an Ohio State loss. They need Northwestern to come in to Indianapolis and upset Ohio State. Which is very unlikely in and of itself. Ohio State is the clear favorite in that game. Everyone's picking them. Again, you can see my thoughts on that game on Thursday, tomorrow, as of recording this video at least. But they're going to need Ohio State to lose. They need Ohio State to lose because, again, Northwestern, well, again, a 1-loss Ohio State might even get in over Cincinnati. I don't know, but I think in order to guarantee, Ohio State is going to need a loss. And then again, in asterisks here, I don't know that it matters too much who wins the Big 12, but in my opinion, it would be favorable if Oklahoma wins the Big 12. They're already behind Cincinnati in the rankings. Again, I talked about I don't think it's by much. But even with this scenario happening, that eliminates Texas A&M, Florida, Clemson, and Ohio State. I don't know that Cincinnati is going to be able to get in over the Big 12 champion. I think there's going to be a big debate in the committee room if this situation does come upon us. But hey, anything can happen in 2020. That is, if Cincinnati can get onto the field. And that's my last preview. Again, Cincinnati is nowhere guaranteed a spot in the playoff, but they could get pretty close. And that is going to do it for how each team, or I should say how each contender can get into the college football playoff. As I said in the beginning of the video, thank you so much for clicking on this video and giving it a try. If you enjoyed, leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you're brand new to the channel, or you just flat out enjoyed this video. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I'm going to be uploading a video on Thursday and maybe Friday. We'll see how that goes. Also, leave a comment down below. You can tell me your thoughts on this video or what you think each team needs in order to get in, and share this video with everyone you know. As I said in the beginning, I'm trying to grow the channel as big as possible, so it would mean a lot if you could share this video with everyone you know who likes college football as much as you and me. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I will see all of you guys tomorrow with my conference championship preview. Goodbye.